I'm here with Max Igan in his secret hideout somewhere in southern Queensland. I mean, making me wear a hood to get here, Max, I thought was a bit over the top, but...
Got to be done, mate. Got to be done. It's the secret portal, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful location, wherever it might be. I mean, we're out in the boonies here somewhere.
It is. I live in a shed, but it's pretty paradisical. It's a beautiful spot to be. I'm very, very happy where I am.
Yeah, no, I can see that. You've been here for a couple of years now, I think.
A couple of years, yeah. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Lovely people who own the place, and they've looked after me, given me a sort of a permanent residence, which has been great. And it's really good. I mean, I can go overseas, I can travel, I can do all the stuff that I've got to do, and I don't have to worry about anything. It's all still here when I get back. So.
Well, I've noticed that. I mean, we're so far from anywhere that nobody locks their doors here.
No. I went overseas for 3 months and didn't lock the place. Left the keys in the car and didn't lock the house when I left.
Because nobody'd ever find it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like that, isn't it?
Oh, it's excellent. So you've been doing a lot of stuff over the past 12 months. You went to Peru. I'm not sure which order, but you went to Peru and then you were in Palestine.
Well, I went to Peru. I didn't go to Palestine. Didn't get into Gaza. I tried. I went to Peru about this time last year, and since then I went over to Portugal and Spain, and I went through England, went through a lot of Europe, and tried to get into Gaza the whole time. And even now, since I've been back, I've been trying to get in there, and every time it's ready for me to go, something happens and I can't get in. Even now I've got a flight booked ready to go to Cairo, return ticket, all there. I've got someone ready to pick me up at Cairo airport and take me straight to Rafah. But Rafah crossing's closed. I can't get through.
But unless I entered a time warp somewhere, I'm sure I've seen video footage of you on top of a building with our good buddy Ken O'Keefe.
That was in 2012.
Oh, that was really? Was it that long ago?
That wasn't in the last year. That was
okay.
In 2012. Yeah, that was in 2012. Ken and I went in there, kind of incognito, unannounced. Didn't tell anybody we were coming in. Didn't even tell Hamas we were coming in. Snuck in there and spent 10 days in there, running around with a video camera. Ended up getting detained by Hamas on the border on the way out, which was a good thing. It was really the only way we would have gotten out, because we couldn't have come out through the official border crossing, because we entered the country illegally, so we would have got arrested in Cairo had we not have received help from Hamas to get out. So they were pretty good to us, considering we'd broken into their country illegally, and they're supposed to be a terrorist organisation. I mean, they were pretty good to us. So yeah, that was in 2012 we went in there, and I've been trying to get back in there ever since. It's become more and more difficult. Like it's a very, very bad situation there at the moment. A lot of people think because the bombing has stopped that everything's okay in Gaza, but it's not. It's 51 days of intensive bombardment, and Israel's closed all the borders, and Egypt is now in the process of bulldozing the Egyptian side of Rafah, the entire town. They're going to obliterate the entire town and move it 5 kilometres away. So there's no chance of there being any communication between the people from Gaza and the people from Rafah on the Egyptian side. So they're isolating the place more and more, while the world is distracted with other things. You know, ISIS and Ukraine and whatever else they can cook up, Ebola, you know, anything else they can find to scare us with.
So, I mean, there's something that doesn't stack up for me. I mean, ISIS is an Islamic State terrorist organization, allegedly.
They tell us.
They tell us that. Israel is continuing with its genocide towards the Palestinian people. So why is it that ISIS doesn't turn its attention towards Israel and help out its brothers in Palestine?
Well, we've seen ISIS actually burning Palestinian flags and attacking and assassinating all forms of Muslims, Christians, anybody. You know, to say they're a Muslim extremist group is completely wrong, because a religious extremist group follows the letter of the religion. And ISIS is doing all sorts of things which are completely against the Quran. So they're obviously not a Muslim organisation at all. And they seem to be Western run. I mean, you've got to really look at it. It's all it's doing is turning the whole world against Islam. It's contributing to the balkanization of the Middle East, which has always been the plan for Greater Israel, to balkanize the Middle East, to turn all of these countries into separate little factions, to whip up sectarian hatred and sectarian violence in all the Arab countries. And yeah, they're attacking everybody but Israel. And we're told that these Muslim extremists are such a threat to Israel, which is why we need to send so much money to Israel and keep protecting them, because they're the only bastion of democracy and truth and freedom in the Middle East, when in reality it's an apartheid state, it's a pariah state, it's not a democracy. There's a wall around the Palestinian section, and everything this ISIS group is doing seems to be promoting the Greater Israel Project, and they're attacking everybody except Israel. How come none of these Arab terrorist groups who hate Israel so much, how come they never attack Israel? They always attack American and British journalists and all of this sort of stuff. I mean,
even allegedly beheading people that have converted to Islam.
Yeah. Just to show how uncontrolled they are, and what terrible terrorists they are, and how it's always a British guy doing it. So they're whipping up this whole fervour about domestic terrorism, people who do what we do, people who question the actions of the government. Oh no, these guys are inciting people to go and join ISIS. That's what they're saying now in the media. And of course we're doing anything but that. And the whole thing is Western run. It's whipping up this whole Western animosity towards the Muslim world. It's creating an excuse for the West to go in and bomb all of these countries it wants to bomb, and whip up sectarian hatred and violence in all of these countries, and split the whole lot up so Israel can claim itself as the only bastion of peace in the area. I mean, it's a setup. It's been a setup right from the beginning.
So we've got Henry Kissinger, who claims that in his worldview, Israel will probably cease to exist in about 25 years, maybe less. And yet, what we seem to be having is an agenda that's being perpetrated by mock terrorists driving their brand new Toyota trucks that they obviously got from an eBay page or an Amazon page that I have a lot of difficulty tracking down, along with all the hardware that goes with it.
All of the stuff they've got. I heard on the radio when I was out before that they're receiving around about $1 million a day in funding from oil. Okay, you know this, do you? Well, how come you haven't cut off their supply of funding? How come you haven't cut off all of this? Yeah, where are they buying all these brand new Toyotas and brand new Nikes and all of this equipment from? I mean, come on, are we really supposed to buy into this terrible terrorist organisation whose ranks are growing by the thousands all the time because people are leaving our countries to go and join? Really, I'm not seeing anybody leaving to go and join. And where are they getting all of their stuff from? And how come you haven't cut off all of their funding? How can they be worth so much on the stock market? Isn't this a Western-run operation? I mean, aren't the banking system, isn't this all run by the IMF? People are just buying into it, though.
Absolutely, well, but they're not looking and not scratching beneath the surface in any way.
It's incredible, but the whole thing is Western-run. The whole thing is designed to promote the Greater Israel Project, to promote instability in the area, and to give them the excuse they need to lock us down. To say, oh, there's all of these Western people running to join because of these people who are preaching what appears to be peace on the internet, but actually they're attempting to undermine their own governments and create violence in their own countries, which is completely absurd. But it shows how scared, how terrified our governments actually are. I mean, the wheels are falling off the system completely, and everything they're doing is waking more and more people up, and it's all falling apart. I mean, even the Ebola scare, no one's really buying into this anymore. That fell off really, really quickly. That fell apart. People are realising there is no Ebola crisis. You don't have to run home and lock your doors, So they're trying to, this whole Muslim menace. The Muslims are coming. It's a joke, Unfortunately, a lot of people are buying into it, though. Hopefully, the more they do it, the more people wake up. So hopefully the numbers will reach a critical mass at some stage soon,
It's becoming evident that they're running scared of something. We had the NATO conference in Cardiff in South Wales a few weeks ago, and Cardiff was turned into a fortress city with literally dividing fences. It looked like the West Bank with all the dividing fences down the roads. And of course, Brisbane last weekend, just a few miles away from here, was in similar lockdown.
It was incredible. They locked down the whole city. It was like a ghost town. And it shows just how terrified they are of the general public. These are our world leaders, people we love and respect so much they have to clear out the whole city and put armed guards everywhere. Obama actually asked if they would remove one roundabout from Brisbane so that he wouldn't have to slow down when he drove through this one intersection. Even though the whole city's locked down and it's a ghost town, can you please remove the roundabout as well? This is how paranoid they are.
But this is actually taking the proverbial piss, isn't it? Because it's like, basically we are so all-powerful
Yeah.
we can make you change your daily infrastructure to facilitate us making a single journey from A to B.
Yeah. They didn't do it. They didn't remove it, but he requested that they did. And it's the fact that they request that. I mean, but it shows how paranoid they are, how scared they are, and how terrified they are of the general public. Because they know that everybody knows they're criminals. I mean, the whole world knows there's something terribly wrong. A lot of people may not know what it is, particularly, but they know that there is something terribly wrong. Am I moving too much?
It's okay. I'll keep up with you. Don't worry. Don't worry. No, you make the observation that an increasing number of people are beginning to realise. I mean, obviously, we're a long way short of the critical mass. And I know you in particular have, and you have every right to be, are very critical of the people in Australia. I mean, you call it apathralia.
Well, yeah.
And because this is the culture of the good life.
She'll be right, mate. She'll be right, mate. It's all good. No worries. Which is all very well, but hang on, it won't be right. Not unless we pay attention, because they're doing a lot of very wrong things. Like with what you do with the fracking, I really thought fracking would motivate this country. This is a country which is a spring-fed nation. We have no precipitation. We have no high mountains. All of our water comes from groundwater. If they pollute the groundwater, there can be no life in this country. Groundwater is essential to the security of this nation. Therefore, any threat to groundwater must be seen as a threat to national security. I tried to present this to the people of Australia, and they all go, yeah, you're right. What's on the TV? They hear it, but they just don't hear it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's the fluoride. Maybe it's the level of fluoridation in this country. But then not all areas are fluoridated. But then you've got areas like Byron Bay, the northern rivers, which isn't fluoridated, but the people there are just running around in circles. So you've got to wonder. I mean, I've tried for 7 years to wake this country up. I thought it would be a good chance, because 22 million people, maybe 26 million by now. It's less than one major city. You can wake up an entire country in Australia easier than you can wake up one city in the United States. But unfortunately, they're spread so thin across the country. When it's a country twice the size of Europe, and it's got less than one city's worth of population.
It's 1/3 the population of the UK.
Exactly. So, it's very difficult to get to all of these people. And unfortunately, the main concentrations of people are in the cities. The cities are heavily fluoridated. They're full of electronic bombardment, and you can't get these people to pay attention to things such as groundwater. They just think water's just there. It falls out of the sky. You turn on the tap and it comes out. Where's the problem? They can't see it. They just don't think that way. And this culture's kind of promoted, they're all country hicks anyway. Don't worry about what the country hicks want. They're always complaining. So there's all these sorts of programming that people are subject to. And because we live in democracies, which are majority rule, well, when the majority live in these concentrated pockets of civilization and they're fed misinformation, when you have a vote on an important thing like fracking, the majority doesn't care, because they're not connected to it at all. And that's why I think that they concentrate people in cities so much, because people in cities really don't care. They're too busy with their little lifestyle and all of the stuff that goes with the city. And they're too busy. I mean, cities are very expensive to live in. You look at London, congestion tax, council tax. How many taxes have you guys got? It's incredible, So that's why they do it, and it's been played very well here in Australia, unfortunately, And they're very apathetic.
Well, if I heard somebody say it once, I must have heard it 100 times, because I heard the reference to people in Sydney as being time poor. Everybody in Sydney is time poor. Well, there's the same number of minutes in the hour or hours in the day as you have out here in the boonies, and yet we're able to apparently find the time to even sit down and have a discussion for an hour or so.
Yeah.
And yet in Sydney, they can't even get 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Well, they create these lifestyles for themselves. It's really interesting looking at city lifestyles, because people are running around really, really fast, and it's completely meaningless. Everything they're doing is completely and utterly meaningless. But they say, well, you're just sitting around all day philosophizing and traveling the world and making films and doing all these things. Your life's meaningless. Well, hang on, I'm living my life. I'm actually experiencing me. Why is that meaningless,
Now, Well, and the reality is, of course, they're not living; they're basically existing. It's an existence.
It's a survival thing. I mean, that's all they're doing is surviving. They're surviving. They've found a way through the machine that works for them. They've found a little path that works. They can keep their head above water, and that's what it's all about. And they measure themselves by their social standing, by their economic status. They don't ever actually experience themselves. It's all about what they look like, who they are, what stuff they've got, where they live, the people they hang around with, what clubs they go to, what cliques they're in. It's not ever about them. The art of being you, and experiencing that to its fullest potential and realising maybe what you could bring to this reality, how you can improve reality by your presence in it. What can you do with the gift of life that's been given to you? It's not about the accumulation of stuff. That's not you, that's just stuff. And it owns you. You get all this stuff. Gee, I've got this big house now. I've got all this stuff. I'm too scared to go out because someone might come and steal my stuff. I've got to put big fences around it, hire all these armed guards, and if I go overseas or go away, I can only do it for a little while because I've got all this stuff here that's tied me to this place, so I've got to keep coming back to it. So the stuff owns you. You don't own the stuff. You're only here for a little while. All your stuff will be here when you're dead. Guess what? You didn't own it. It's still here, and you're gone. Bit of a clue there, And if you won't go out and experience your life because of all this stuff, then the stuff owns you. The fraud of ownership, it's an interesting thing. I don't consider that I own any of this stuff that's here. It's just, I'm just sharing space with it. It'll be here when I'm gone. And a lot of the stuff, if I really love something, after a few years I'll give it away to somebody else because I've got so much enjoyment out of it. And what's the point of just sitting and having it sit there rotting, remembering that enjoyment it once gave me? If it's just sitting there and I'm not using it, I'm not doing anything with it, and someone else likes it, I might as well give it to them because then they'll have that experience too. And
interestingly, that's very much the Arabic culture. As I learned when I was living in the Middle East, if you're in somebody's house and you make the mistake of saying to somebody that, a piece of an ornament or whatever, you say that, well, that looks really nice, and their immediate response is, please have it, please take it.
Yeah.
They want to share it. They don't have an ownership, an attachment to something.
They're an incredible culture, and they're a very courteous culture. Every Arab home you walk into, the first thing they do is feed you. You feed your guests. Even if you stop and talk to someone outside a shop, if you're talking to them for longer than 20 seconds or 30 seconds, they'll be motioning inside for the servant boy to bring out a tray of tea and cakes so you can sit down and break bread with them. Very, very courteous people. Wonderful people. I love the Arab culture. Every Arab culture that I've been to, every Arab country that I've been to, they've been beautiful, courteous people, generous, kind, all of them. The whole concept of this Muslim menace, it's a complete concoction.
Well, it's almost like a culturicide, isn't it? It's an attempt to totally destroy what is fundamentally a humanitarian culture.
Yeah, it is. They've created this whole Muslim extremist concept, which is a whole Western invention. The whole thing's a Western invention. The first books on radical Islam were printed in America and were used to train the Mujahideen, to teach them that the Russians were not just attacking their country, they were attacking their faith, and to radicalize Islam to fight the war. That's where radical Islam came from. So it's a completely Western invention. And the people that are going out doing these things that ISIS are doing are not Islamic. Now these guys are partying, they're drinking alcohol, they're raping women, they're killing women and children, they're doing drugs. I mean, these aren't Muslims. It's like the 9/11 guys. They're at their strip bars doing cocaine. They're not Muslims. How can you be a Muslim extremist if you're a strip bar doing cocaine? You're about to sacrifice your life for Allah, and you're doing all this stuff guaranteeing that when you do sacrifice your life, you're going to go to hell for all eternity. Yeah, that's a great plan, isn't it? That's not a Muslim extremist. That's someone that's working for the CIA or from Mossad that's setting somebody up. I mean, come on, folks.
And the only executioner that ISIS seem to have is labelled Jihadi John, with a South London accent. Of course, we've never seen anything more than his eyes. But my recommendation to those who are seeking him out is that they should actually go over to the area around Pinewood Studios in West London.
Yeah, that would probably be a good place to sort him out. Yeah, absolutely. You'd probably find him there. And the beheading videos are so fake. I mean, I don't know how anyone's buying into it. And they're all the PGR versions, fade to black. What's this fade to black stuff, and then the dummies there with the rubber head on. I mean, come on, folks, I worked at film studios for a long time. This isn't even good CGI, you know. So
that's why David Cameron wanted to make it illegal for anybody to download the video for fear that they might actually spot it's a fraud.
yeah, exactly. It's a fraud. It's a complete fraud.
So now, I mean, we've got our two respective countries in a very similar situation, and no surprise, and of course this also applies to Canada and New Zealand and the US. But in particular, we've got both Tony Abbott and David Cameron now looking to accelerate their agenda to lock down any dissent, and in fact even going as far as to label non-violent domestic extremists as greater danger as ISIS.
Yeah, well, saying that they're extremists. People who have a warped worldview, David Cameron said, and the warped worldview is basically anyone who questions the official line. Anyone who suggests that there may have been something wrong with the official story of 7/7, anyone who suggests that there may be Israeli fingerprints on 9/11. They suggest that these are people who sound like they're preaching peace, but are actually recruiting for ISIS. And it's because of these people that we're having 15,000 new members in ISIS from all Western countries and all of this sort of stuff. And what these people are preaching by saying this is they're attempting to undermine their own governments and create violence, instigate violence in their own countries by saying these things. I mean, how do you get to that conclusion from simply saying, well, hang on, what about the 5 dancing Israelis that said they were there to film 9/11 and document the event on Israeli TV? Wouldn't that indicate that Israel had prior knowledge because these guys were there documenting the event and they said they were there to document the event? But because I say that, what, now I'm a domestic extremist who's recruiting for ISIS? Is that what you're saying, David? You know, I mean, really, that's what it's come down to. And this is the sort of stuff they're promoting. There's even an online group now called the the Counter Extremism Project, which is attempting to identify extremists in our countries, and it's labelling political extremists and religious extremists are infecting our countries. So it's immediately labelling anyone with a different political view as an extremist and putting him in the same basket as a religious extremist, i.e. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, whoever you want to name, and saying, oh, these guys are trying to infect our countries, what can we do? Sign up and help us. And it even has programs there such as counter-narratives, like Hasbara. Counter-narratives, things that if you see people posting these things, here's what you can say back. Just cut and paste, here it is. And they'll probably even set up like Hasbara where you'll actually get paid per post. You know, so these are the sorts of things that they're doing in an attempt to vilify the truth movement. And it shows just how scared they are. You know, they're really, really terrified. It shows what a difference we're making.
Have you ever met anybody, Max, who, having made a little bit of an effort to research these unfolding events, has ever turned around and said, I absolutely believe the official version of events, there is no way there is any conspiracy whatsoever?
The only person I ever heard backflip like that was Charlie Beach, you know, and he did that in a conversation with me, and he's still stuck to it. I mean, I don't know what's going on there, whether he was programmed or what, but I mean, I don't know how anybody with any degree of intelligence could buy into the official story of 9/11 or the official story of anything they say. I don't know how anybody could not question the fact that there was a drill on 7/7, exactly the same places doing exactly the same things. How they say these so-called terrorists blew themselves up on the train and yet later they shot them at Canary Wharf. How did that magically happen? When they blew themselves up on the train, did they go through some dimension warp and suddenly appear at Canary Wharf and had to be shot again?
Well, of course, there is absolute abject denial that anything occurred at Canary Wharf on that morning. Both the Metropolitan Police and the British government have denied that there was any event at Canary Wharf. Yet there is more empirical evidence to prove that something transpired at Canary Wharf that morning than there is that these guys actually boarded the trains.
Exactly. There's more proof that they were at Canary Wharf than there was that they actually entered those stations.
Yeah.
So, come on, you know.
I mean, there is even an academic paper that's been written by I think it has the snappy title of What Really Happened at Canary Wharf on the Morning of July 7th, 2005. But it is out there. People can find it and download it. It's peer-reviewed. And once again, it's the proof that there is more empirical evidence that something happened at Canary Wharf that put Canary Wharf into lockdown. The people who worked there were instructed to stay away from the windows, to stay inside their buildings until they'd cleaned up their mess.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, there's so many things wrong with what they tell us, and we're being told not to question any of this, you know. But I don't know, they're giving us a good amount of ammunition to wake people up, put it that way. I mean, it's becoming obvious. I mean, even now, like the Australian government outlawing whistleblowers. Why would you outlaw whistleblowers? If you outlaw whistleblowers, you're banning government accountability, basically. The only government who would outlaw whistleblowers is a government who's scared of being caught for something. And just the fact that they're doing these sorts of things, people are starting to scratch their heads a little bit. Maybe wake up from their apathy a little bit. You know, even though I call the place Apathralia, I mean, I don't judge them badly for that because they're programmed into it. You know, fluoride, electromagnetic bombardment, just the scholastic system in itself, this whole social system that we're subject to. And, you know, it's that kind of a culture as well. It's the beer and barbecue culture, which is very promoted in this society. So, I mean, I love them. And once they get roused, they're a very staunch bunch. It's just what's going to rouse them. You know, I thought fracking would. But I don't know. We're in a pretty precarious position. But there's more and more fuel coming. I mean, Tony Abbott's woken up a lot of people, so he's provided us with a lot of fuel to wake people up. So, I mean, he's woken up more people than I could. I think people are realising he's done so many things. I mean, he's cut so many election promises. He's cut so many payments. He's put so many people in hardship that people are thinking, hang on a minute, something's terribly wrong, you know. And he's even saying what a poor country Australia is. People are going, hang on a minute, poor country? We're actually one of the most resource-rich countries on earth, and if even a small percentage of the resources of this country was passed down to the people, we'd be living one of the most opulent lifestyles on the planet. We should have one of the highest standards of living in the world, because we've got less than one city in this giant continent.
Well, actually, that's an excellent point you make, because you're absolutely correct. I mean, Australia should be the wealthiest nation on the planet in terms of its resources versus the population.
Yeah.
Yet, whilst the national debt is only it's outrageous, but it's 1/3 of GDP, which is obviously a lot less than the US or the UK. But the great disconnect is that the private debt in Australia is the highest of any nation in the Western world. So basically people are being lured into outrageous levels of borrowing on the backs of this belief that they'll always be able to pay it back because there'll always be work available. Yet, when I walked through Sydney last week, I saw more homeless and disturbingly young homeless and clearly jobless people than I've seen in previous trips to Sydney.
Yeah, and that's the way the country's run, mate. And like I said, it should be one of the most opulent lifestyles on the planet. That should be a red flag for
Now, Gina Reinhardt told me that, as far as she's concerned, it is a country where you can have the most opulent lifestyle. But of course, I think she's the 55th richest person on the planet. You know, she is effectively Queen of Western Australia.
She basically spends her time going out there raping the country's resources at the expense of everybody else. Yeah, you can have the most opulent lifestyle you want if you're prepared to throw everybody else down into the trash can to do it. I mean, that's Gina Reinhardt. I mean...
Yeah, she seems to believe that everybody should be basically on minimum wage and dancing to her tune.
She says that people who, all the people who are unemployed and people who are not financially viable should be sterilised.
Well, actually, that's a direct quote from her father.
If you believe this as a solution to the Aboriginal problem. Herd the worst of the Aborigines into one area, then put a chemical in their water that sent them sterile. In time, there'd be none of them left. Well, that solution has been put forward by none other than one of the Premier's closest friends, West Australian mining magnate, Lang Hancock.
Those that have been assimilated into earning good living or earning wages amongst the civilised areas, that have been accepted into society, and they have accepted society and can handle society, I'd leave them well alone. The ones that are no good to themselves and can't accept things, the half-caste, and this is where most of the trouble comes. I would dope the water up so that they were sterile and would breed themselves out in the future, and that would solve the problem.
The do-gooders came along, and these bureaucrats and the rest of them who write great theses on things down south about problems in the north, and they decided that they better go and civilise these savages of ours. So they brought them into the towns, threw them in amongst the people, and they closed their eyes and shut their eyes to the problems that confront the white population.
There's no way in the world that I am happy with the fact that money is being lent to Aborigines at 2% to build houses when our young people have got to pay 14 and 15% to build a house, and they've got to work their guts out and pay tax to get it. The Aborigines are getting absolutely total help from not only the federal government, the Queensland government. Now, I wouldn't mind, Philip, if it was just the true Aborigine, but there are so many hybrids, and they're nearly white, and this is where it hurts me.
White men think that land, no matter how sacred it is to us, can be destroyed for money. The greatest threat to the survival of our culture comes from the multinational mining companies. These companies have discovered wealth and profits under the last areas of Australia which we hold. This is the Comalco bauxite mine at Weipa, on Aboriginal land. The mining company pays us no royalties, and they accept no responsibility for the terrible impact they have had on the Aboriginal people here.
European came, we got nothing now.
So that's Lang Hancock in 1984 making his statement that basically the Aborigines should be given drugs to effectively sterilise them, except those that have integrated into Western culture and are making a contribution to the corporatist society.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about corporatism, the whole thing. I mean, the Australian Aboriginal, they're one race that have been really brutalised. This is why I've got such an affinity with the Palestinian people as well, because the parallels between what's happening in Palestine and what's happened to the Australian Aboriginal are phenomenal. They really are. I mean, what we've seen in Australia is a slow genocide of these people, not just in as much as killing them and wiping out the people, but also their culture, decimating their culture with the stolen generation and just decimating them as much as they can from their heritage, decimating them, removing them from the land, killing them. The amount of Aboriginals that were killed in Tasmania, you know, absolutely shocking and brutal. And the white men wouldn't have survived in this country were it not for the Aboriginal people when they arrived. You know, they'd go out and get lost in the desert and lost in the forest, and the Aboriginal people would bring them back and take them to the camp and say, there you go, you silly white people.
But also there's a unique ecology here, which I think people outside of Australia cannot comprehend, and that is that much of the flora here actually embraces fire.
Yeah.
It needs to have fire to be able to germinate.
Yeah, you've got trees here that don't shed their seed at all until they get caught in a bushfire. It takes a fire to pop the seed pods so the seeds disperse. Yeah, this country is used to fire. It's got a particular culture, and the Aboriginal people wandered around this country naked for 40,000 years. That's how advanced they were. They didn't even need clothes. They would want to meet, and they would just say, okay, we all want to meet here, and they would all be there. It was like a telepathic connection. They just knew to meet at certain places at certain times and to do certain things. They had a unique connection with this land, and then we came along and severed it all. You know, and it's shocking what's been done to these people. It really is.
But what has been done with these people is actually a metaphor for what's now effectively the corporatist philosophy on a globalist scale. You know, because we have the likes of Peter Brabeck of Nestle 9 years ago stating that those who were not directly contributing to the corporatist agenda should not actually have the right to access to fresh water. He actually made the observation that access to fresh water should not be regarded as a human right.
Yeah.
And so just like Lang Hancock was saying that basically unless the Aborigines have been integrated into our corporatist society and are actually making a contribution, then the rest should be sterilised. And basically they're now really looking to extrapolate that same philosophy, but right across the whole planet.
Right across the whole planet. Corporatise the entire planet. That's what it's about. Homogenise everybody. That's why they've done it with the whole tourist industry. Gone out and turned everywhere into everybody else, so we get used to everything being the same everywhere. And everybody's losing their culture as a result. You know, like promoting multiculturalism. But multiculturalism isn't people coming in and sharing your culture. It's them bringing their culture to your country and homogenising the whole lot. You know, so multiculturalism, you have people coming to your society, but you end up with the Australians living here, then the Greek section and the Chinese section and the Russian section and the French section and the Oriental section, and they don't integrate into the local culture, and so the local culture gets lost. And that happens right around the planet, so it ends up this homogenised corporate system. You end up with one corporation running the whole planet. That's what they want. It'll be one corporation that controls everything. And all it will need will be enough people to run the infrastructure of the big machine. The rest of them will be useless eaters. And once you've got it to that level, I mean, all it can do is maximise profits and lower the quality of its product. So people just get discarded along the way. This whole corporate system is designed to discard humanity and to turn the whole planet into a rubbish tip. You know, it'll destroy the Earth, and it'll remove this Earth of its ability to support any of the current life forms. You know, then we'll have to start again. You know, evolution or whatever it was can start again from that point. But this whole corporate system, because it's based in permanent growth, we harvest everything, we make it to break, and then we throw it on the rubbish tube. And people just get discarded because it's not about people, it's about the economic model. So we support the economic model and permanent growth at the expense of everything else. And that will result in the discarding of humankind.
Well, and
so
everything.
Where did the system come from? Who put this in place?
Well, that's a very good question, isn't it? Because, I mean, humanity clearly is, as far as these global corporatists are concerned, nothing more than a commodity. I mean, they even tell everybody, they have been telling everybody what they are for 20 years, ever since the term human resource crept into the corporate vocabulary.
Human resources, consumers. That's what we are. We're consumers, and we're consumers of resources. But the biggest resource on the planet is humankind. You know, we're the resource. Everything we pull out of the planet is for us. You know, it's our attention is the resource, our belief that this system is real and that we have to support this system. That's the resource. That's the most important thing. You know, our loss of humanity, that's what's caused it. That's why I believe the way through this is to rediscover our humanity, to start operating according to moral parameters rather than legal parameters. Question any legislation which causes you to deviate from your moral compass. But we need everybody to do it. You know, people in corporations who are, you know, realising that it's more profitable to do it this way, which is going to damage the environment, it's better to pay the fine, you know, that it's going to be less than having to fix the environment and do it the environmental way. Develop some morals. These people need to develop some morals. You know, it's not about money, it's not about the economic model. It's about your energy and what you do with that, you know. Like, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot to re-educate people. It's going to take probably a couple of generations to re-educate people into who and what they actually are. And we've got a long way to go to get back to what we should be. But it's finding a way to do it, finding a way to snap people out of this dream they're in. And we obviously can't just bring this system down, crash it, because too many people would suffer. And if we haven't changed our moral compass anyway, if we do crash the system, we're just going to end up back here. But if we do change our moral compass and start operating according to legal or moral parameters rather than legal parameters, and everybody starts doing it, then the system has to change around us. We don't have to reconstruct anything or pull anything down or change anything. If we start operating and doing the right thing in all that we do, the system has to change around us. You know what I'm saying?
I guess the fundamental obstacle to this was epitomised when I was at Gloucester last week, where I had the conversation with the police officer. Well, let's take a look at it. Are you guys all local?
Protecting land and water!
Yeah? Oh.
Protecting land and water!
You guys been up to Queensland?
No.
You say you haven't seen what this industry does down up there?
I've seen on some of the films, and yeah, I went to the information night at Foster.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know if you... this fellow here, I can't remember his name, he was one of the main presenters at the...
Right, Willem?
Night. Yeah, he did some...
Yeah?
Had some films and stuff, so I saw it there. It's pretty full on up there.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot different to here.
At the moment.
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually saying to some of the guys yesterday, as we all know, this is just a pilot project, and so it's not a production thing, but they're talking 110 wells, up to 20, 30 wells if it goes ahead in a few years' time. I don't want to be here then, because it probably will be something like you had at Bentley.
Yeah, really.
Well, I'm imagining
Yeah.
that the protests will be a lot bigger if it gets to that stage.
You better hope so.
Well, I just don't want to be involved, in this capacity, you know what I mean? Like if that happens,
Yeah.
I don't want to be here for it, because I don't enjoy doing this.
You don't want to live in a gas field?
Well,
Come on, tell us!
we don't express
'Cause
personal opinions.
These people will be living in a gas field.
Yeah, I know.
And have you seen the people who are living in a gas field now?
I was just
They are screaming,
telling
man.
this gentleman that I was at Foster for your, I'm sure you were there, I'm sure it was you who were presenting at Foster.
No.
Was that was not you?
No.
Somebody who looks like you,
Oh,
Willem.
was someone looks like you, yeah. Okay, well, you guys had a presentation at Foster, at Club Foster. Yeah.
Not about a month ago.
Yeah, I reckon 2 months ago maybe. And they had some footage from Queensland and actually footage from America, I think, where they're,
Yeah, it's parts of America that are out of control too.
yeah.
That was probably on the Fractured Country
Fenton.
thing.
Was it John Fenton?
Might have been.
John Fenton is walking off his farm at Wyoming. And his neighbour drank the water. She can't talk now.
Oh, okay.
It's terrible.
Yeah, well, as I said, I don't make personal opinions when I'm
Working.
working.
Yeah.
So.
It puts you guys in a real dilemma, doesn't it, really?
Well, in a way, but I suppose not in the sense that we know that when we're here, we're just doing our job and that's what we have to do. So the dilemma's sort of removed because we know that we have to do our job when we're here. So yeah.
But if there comes a point where, it does get to the level of, say, Queensland, where there's people up there that their livelihoods have been destroyed, their lives and their livelihoods have been destroyed in literally 5 years.
But you need to change government.
So what we saw there was Inspector Manning basically distancing himself from his role policing the gate at the AGL well site by saying that he was just following orders, he was just doing his job. And of course a lot of people have become institutionalized or corporatized. In other words, that they fail to see how they could even continue to survive without the salary check that comes in on a monthly basis or whatever. So how do you think we might sort of break through that?
Well, it's a hard thing. That's why we need strong communities. We need people who are willing to support each other when they take a stand. If we've got strong communal responses to all of this stuff, this is why I'm always telling people you've got to get to know yourself enough to respect yourself so you can respect people around you and build community. And when I say that, people think, I've got to go build an alternate community. No, build community here. Put common unity back into this community. Get to know your neighbours. So that when you stand up, the whole community stands up because they all know that this is the right thing to do. And you'd be able to talk to these police officers and say, well, you're just doing your job, but if you're doing something which is immoral, well, we employ these politicians to manage our infrastructure for us. Why are they writing legislation which is immoral and then giving it to you and telling you that you have to carry it out? Why don't you go and arrest this guy? Because he's giving you legislation which is interfering with our ability to have a vibrant, a functional society. So you need to vet this legislation. Who vets the legislation when they give it to the police? Do you guys look at it when they give you this stuff, or do you just follow every order they give you? Because if you do, well, we need to re-examine how the police interact with government, because this is not acceptable. This is what created things like Nazi Germany, if you want to go there, or the Bolshevik situation, or any number of dictatorships in the past. It's blind obedience to authority. Who vets the legislation? So, if legislation is put in place which is putting society in hardship, who vets it? Someone has to be able to question this, because obviously the politicians aren't, which means that they're very likely in abusive office. And we need to rally the community to express a loss of confidence in these people. But we need you, the police, to stand with us in this. And you can see that we're here protecting the water table, or whatever it is we're doing. We're here doing the right thing, and you're supposed to be hired to protect society. Why aren't you doing so? Why are you simply enforcing legislation? Where did your role change? Where suddenly the police don't protect society, now they simply enforce law. If that's the case, who vets the law?
And in some cases, they're not even enforcing the law, because they are actually acting unlawfully. And in the UK, we've actually had a judge state categorically that the police have been acting as corporate enforcers and have been acting unlawfully, but they still elect to take that stance as opposed to do the job that they're probably employed to do, which is to act as peace officers.
Well, a lot of it is peer group pressure, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people are being subject, they're screening people, so they're hiring sociopaths for police officers. Unfortunately, they are. And there's all the peer group pressure of the boys' club that they're kind of in as well. And they know that they're above the law. They know they can get away with things. I mean, look at this 16 or 18-year-old kid just shot in America, you know, because he didn't answer the police. He refused to respond, he was just silent. So they shot him, put 13 bullets into him or something. I mean, and they were told that, yeah, they acted responsibly. So they know they can get away with whatever they want. And they've got all this electronic equipment on them as well, which I would suggest sets up these frequencies and just puts them in these stressful sociopathic states where they're just ready to react at anything.
Well, no, that's a good observation. And in fact, in the UK, there have been a number of studies done on the Tetra radio, which is a particular digital frequency. And of course, they're carrying it here, right on, on their shoulder. The aerial comes right up alongside their face, and then we wonder why it is that we see irrational behaviour amongst the police forces.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a hugely contributing factor. I really do. The electronic gadgetry that they've got, these are set to certain frequencies, which create erratic brain behaviour and put people in a very unstable state where they'll just react at the drop of a hat. And half these guys are on steroids. And they're screened to be sociopaths. And also, here in Australia, there was one guy who applied to join the police force and he was rejected because he scored too high on the aptitude test. And he took it to court and tried to appeal the decision, and the court upheld the decision. And they basically said, no, a perfect score is 27 or something on the aptitude test, which is an IQ of about 104. So they don't want anyone with an IQ over 104. So these people can't think real clearly. They just want people who can follow orders and do what they're told, preferably people who come from a broken home, who've got a chip on their shoulder, they were bullied at school, and they really want to get back at the world. And you give them a little bit of authority, give them a gun, give them some radio equipment, put them in a big boys club. That's what we want. And that's what we're getting. And that's why police behave the way they do. And they're getting worse. They're just getting worse and worse and worse over the years. And not only that, but they're becoming militarised. We're having all of our weapons removed from us. We're being locked down more and more, and suddenly our police look like something out of Star Wars or out of the military. They're not nice guys in blue shirts with little buttons anymore. These guys have got black Kevlar, bulletproof vest, helmets, tasers, tear gas, grenade launchers, machine guns. Give me a break. This is supposed to be people there to protect society. Does anyone see something wrong with this picture?
Well, and that same thing is applying, of course, across the wider society as well. 30 years ago, when a company was recruiting, it was actually looking for people who were capable of independent thought and actually showing some initiative. But today, that's a surefire way of making sure you're unemployable.
Absolutely.
If you're going for a job, whatever you do not demonstrate any degree of independent thought or initiative, because you won't get a job.
Exactly.
I saw this with Qantas a few days ago, where I was trying to address a slight change in my schedule. And because the computer basically only gave one option, that was it. And I said, well, how about, a little bit of personal discretion coming into play here? Sorry, sir, can't do that.
Yeah, no independent thought, not permitted at all. Especially if it's not profitable. It's got to fit within the profit guidelines, within the profit margins. And if there's some way they can make more money out of you, let's go there.
So where do we go from here, Max? What's your prognosis for the coming year or three?
Well, I've got a project I'm starting called Full Circle Project, which I'm going to try to re-educate the world with. Get people involved in workshops, hands-on workshops designed to push the envelope with their local councils, break down barriers in their communities. We've got to find ways of empowering local communities at a grassroots level, and of pushing the envelope with your local authorities, local councils, local governments, in such a manner that you're doing something which is benefiting the community, and you're doing it in such a way that it's maybe just pushing the envelope with the council, so they're going to step in and try to stop you, which is going to demonstrate to the rest of the community that these guys don't have your best interests at heart, because they're stopping us doing something which is going to improve and benefit the community. So maybe we need to change the way we interact with these people. Maybe we need to get more involved in our local governments and all this sort of stuff. Try to shift the paradigm with people somehow. I mean, I think we're running out of time, and people are waking up in droves, but they're waking up to the fact that there's a problem. They don't really know what it is, and they don't know what to do about it. And everybody's looking for someone to come along and save them. There's going to be some big event that's going to happen. They're going to reset the money system, or World War III is going to break out, or there's going to be a comet come, or something's going to happen. The world's going to be made different, and I'm not going to have to participate. All I have to do is keep my head down until it happens, and I'm good. Well, I don't think that's the right attitude to have. I think that the world's heading for a bad place, and we have an opportunity to change it. And there's a lot of things out there that are showing us that it's heading for a bad place. The war on terror, the whole ISIS situation, what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in all of our countries. It shows us that we're heading for a bad place. It gives us an opportunity to fix it. So trying to re-educate people into this way of thinking, that's my plan for the next couple of years anyway. I'm going to go out and go pretty full on with it next year, and really try to start some groundswell in a lot of countries, positive groundswell, questioning authority, in a positive way, not revolution, but just questioning things in the right way, and regaining control of our politicians, basically. If they're going to be there, they need to be answerable to us. And at the moment, they're not, because they've tricked us into thinking they're our leaders rather than our employees.
So it's the reinstigation of fiduciary trust.
That would help. That would be good.
The fundamental acknowledgement of responsibility towards the electorate.
I've often said that is the basic agreement you have with government, is a fiduciary trust agreement. We need to re-establish that. Who the actual trustees are, who the benefactors are, who the beneficiaries are, and who the grantors are. Because we're the grantors, we're the beneficiaries, they're just trustees, and they're all in breach of trust.
Max, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to share with you, and thank you for bringing me out to your cave up here in the boonies.
My secret hideaway.
Your secret hideaway, yeah. I guess I've got to put the bag on again to get out of here.
Unfortunately, mate, I'm going to have to put the bag over your head, maybe throw you in the boot for the return journey.
Okay.
That's the way it goes.
Well, hey, listen, if for no other reason, it was worth it just to discover this previously unknown talent, well, unknown to me. Of course, in a past life, you were an accomplished musician. So you introduced the show today with a riff on the electric guitar. So you're going to play us out with a little bit of acoustic. So thanks very much, Max, and hopefully see you at AB6 in May of 2015.
There's a good chance. I'll be there.
Thanks, my friend.
My pleasure, brother.
Take care.
Cool.